Amazon expects you to pay for a smart assistant, and Spotify whines again. This is Mac Voices. Mac Voices is supported by the MacVoices Slack. Discussions, questions, and answers, and a place to talk tech with your friends. The MacVoices Slack is available to all patrons of Mac Voices. Sign up at patreon.com/MacVoices and join in. Well, since we're talking AI, let's go one more, because I really want to know what you think about this. Amazon is contemplating a new AI-powered Alexa using Anthropic's Claude. Marty's laughing. What's so funny, Marty?
You know my love for the A lady. I've said it before on this show. It's like the girlfriend you broke up with that keeps trying to offer you things to stay in a relationship. So every time I ask the A lady what the weather is, she'll tell me the weather, and then she'll offer me, like, would you like to have thunderstorm warnings? Would you like to have this? Would you like to have that? And I'm like, done with it. No, I just want the weather. And when it's tied to Amazon, if you say anything that's like a product name, they're like, we can pull up some of these products that you can buy for us. I'm not paying for, I use the A lady for what I call lower brain functions in my household, turning the lights on and off. And I have no interest in investing in a, what do they call her? Remarkable remarkable A lady. Yeah, don't see it. Not seeing it happening. I think this is what's going to happen. This is what I mentioned. I think we're going to have to start making some choices. Where are we going to invest our money in AI supplemented apps and services? Because they can't cut it any thinner for me. But right now, I don't need a smarter A lady. She's restricted to just lower brain functionings in my household.
Okay, so first of all, I found a couple things interesting here. The first one is that Amazon is stepping away from the A lady and the technology behind it, and they're partnering with Anthropic to base it on Claude. So that was the first thing I thought was interesting. But the more I think about it, and the more I read about the power requirements that AI brings, I start to wonder if all of these companies really aren't justified from the standpoint of being beholden to shareholders. If they aren't justified in maybe charging something for giving access, or maybe having different levels of access, maybe so many queries per week or month for a certain level of access. So I'm not as initially I was a little offended by this, but then the more I thought about it, it's like, okay, if the A lady could be better, I mean, like really better, not what did you say, Marty? Lower brain function, but if that could be really better, but then again, we've got Apple Intelligence knocking on our door, and so who's going to get there first? How are they going to do it? Is Apple going to charge a subscription or something for an additional level? A lot of questions to be answered here.
Yeah, I think they're laying their groundwork because they want to get this out by October. So they're trying to get something out that's functional before Apple swings up in the spring.
And is that going to serve them well, or is it going to be another example of rush to market and not deliver on the promises and kill the credibility?
Yeah, some of the things they talk about in this article is like include providing shopping advice for specific scenarios. Like when you're going on vacation, here's a handy umbrella you might want to buy. Aggregating news stories. They have to know me pretty well to know what news I want to listen to and what news I don't. And then multi-step tasks from a single prompt, such as ordering food or drafting emails. So it's a heavy lift for the way Alexa is. Oh, the A lady is now. But Some of those things just don't sound appealing. They just sound like another way to spend money through Amazon.
Eric, are you an Amazon? Excuse me, now I did it. Are you an A-Lady user? You're muted, Eric.
Sure, I wanted to say something against the A-Lady, and she muted
Yes.
me from afar. No, A-Lady listens to way too much stuff and sends it off who knows where, and then tries to sell you things. So, no, I want all my interactions to be on device, and I it really seems like all of this AI stuff that everyone is trying to trot out is a whole lot more expensive than anyone really anticipated, and I don't see it getting cheaper. I don't think there's a way to easily make it cheaper other than, putting it on device with a more efficient product. So I think all of this rush to have AI everything is going to be immediately followed with the and open your wallet because we're going to charge you 18 times as much, and if you're not happy with it, then go somewhere else and pay more. And then there's going to be a bunch of disappointment about a year or so from now, and if Apple is lucky, that'll be right about the time that they've transitioned a whole pile of stuff over to on device and have gotten the next round of on device stuff working, and they'll be kind of an alternative.
Okay. Jim, I'm curious, if I remember correctly, you're not using any of the smart assistants, are you?
I don't.
Okay.
I mean,
So,
occasionally in my car, I'll say call somebody or drive somewhere, but that's about it.
okay, so being a developer, I started to draw some parallels between the AI models we've had up to now that have really given us a lot of free access. It's almost like, hey, the first one's free, and then we're going to get you hooked on it. I also thought, though, thinking back to when apps first popped up in the App Store for the iPhone, and there was a lot of free and a lot of, buck apps, and that made it difficult for the more pro level apps to start charging what they needed to charge.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a similarity here going on?
Right. Is that for me?
Anybody. But
Okay.
I directed at you, but
Good,
sure,
because
anybody.
I don't know that I mean, it's always tough to compete with free.
Eric, you look like you were pensive.
Well, I guess my problem with it is I'm not sure who's getting the money. So, say you're a developer and then you use somebody's model and it kind of works. And the model says, yeah, but you got to pay us something. And you can pass that on, but you're not necessarily getting that money. Right. So if you have a subscription model, you've got to charge enough extra to cover your development work, plus pay off the AI component. It just seems like it's a price jump far greater than maybe people can handle. Now,
Okay.
if you happen to be somebody who's just generating images to do clickbait and spam email and whatever, you probably have a revenue stream that can afford to pay the higher amounts. But I'm not sure that's something I want to encourage.
Okay.
I guess if this is a developer question on using AIs, is that what it was?
It can be whatever you want it to be, Jim.
I think, as a developer, I'm really judicious about what APIs I use, because if you get dependent on something, well, then you're dependent on it. And, now we've seen the rug pulled out time and time again. Even, free and paid services. So, which is not to say I never will use an API, for example, I use Stripe. Because what else would I do? But you know, like look what happened to Apollo and all the Twitter clients. And these people just wake up one day and thought I had a business plan for the next decade, and I'm out of business.
Dave, you've been quiet during this.
Much I'll say on this topic. It's just it's very interesting to say the least. I don't have much to say on it.
Have any of you played with Claude at all?
It's popular among academics. At least the ones I talk to, they like Claude in terms of generative and generating answers and sometimes text. They say that it's much better with language and choice of language than ChatGPT. So there's a fan base for Claude.
Because I've messed with all of them a little bit, but I can't say that I really have a strong feeling one way or another.
Yeah, I didn't see the excitement that my colleagues saw in it.
Webb? Yeah. No, Webb's shaking his head no, and he's muted too.
I'm sorry. A couple of things. I have the A-Lady device, and I also have the S-Lady device, the one that we all are very familiar with. And quite honestly, I think the Apple product is really kind of disappointing, and what all it can and cannot do. But I like how on the A-Lady that it has a lot more cross functionality going outside the ecosystem, and that's something that Apple is very strongly with. You got to stay within our ecosystem and our privacy models and all the things that they protect. It's not a bad thing, but it's just Apple's approach to it. It kind of goes back to my skepticism earlier about what Apple Intelligence is going to do. If they're following what Siri's been able to do thus far, I'm going back to my being a little skeptical on it. But let's not go back to that subject. And I haven't used the Alexa that their contracted model Anthropic. I haven't even heard of it till we talked about it today. So it's really news to me. So
we have 3 kids in our household. The A-Lady, who it's like 3 children. They're all not the same, and they all have different skills. And the A-Lady is good for turning lights on and off. The S-Lady is good for specific content that I have, like my schedule and other things that are on my phone and devices. And the G-Lady I use for information when I have a question. And it can generate information for me. The other 2 can't do that.
Dave?
Other thing I was going to mention too. I mean, Amazon's infrastructure with the A-Lady has been always open. They never charged for it, and now they're talking with adding these AI models to it. That there's going to be a fee for this, and they could charge everybody. Hard to say. There had been some discussions about that, so that was a little concerned because that's how long has Amazon been around with the Echo devices? It's been a long time. It's been got to be close to 10 years. And
they've talked about they've lost a lot of money on it too,
and they keep losing money, right? So, where they may change their model completely and just start charging for it.
But I mean, wouldn't there be an almost open revolt if they've been selling these smart speakers and they've been delivering at the current A-Lady level of service, which is
classic A-Lady.
Classic A-Lady. Okay. Well, I'm going to steal Marty's term, lower brain functions. If they just said, oh, no, now to get lower brain functions, you're going to have to pay $5 a month. And if you want the higher brain functions, you pay $10 a month. And otherwise, I'm sitting here with one of these speakers that's good for pretty much nothing else. Now, it wouldn't be the first time something like that has happened, but and I'm not going to call out any companies, but I can think of a few that have discontinued things that, their products, their hardware products were no longer good for anything other than being a doorstop. So with the amount of effort that Amazon has put in, that would be a major black eye, don't you think?
Yeah.
I think the devices will just be dumb terminals, basically send your music to it, play your music there. I can't see them charging for classic. I can't see them charging for remarkable.
Okay. Well, if
So
they don't
there'll
charge
be
for classic. Sorry, what?
the A-Lady SE that we're going to look forward to.
And we're going to have to make decisions where we're going to put our AI money in, if anywhere.
Guy Searle's in the chat room, and he's apparently starting up his own service. He says, "Ask me anything. I'll send you some web links to your HomePods."
He must know that the HomePod with a screen is coming out sometime soon, I guess.
Robot. We'll see. Let's see how that goes.
I'm kind of curious to know how long really cheap products are going to be able to be used for home assistance, or will they have to start putting more memory and more power into those products to reduce some of the outgoing requests? Because if you reroute everything remotely, there definitely are going to be charges.
Well, Eric, if they really determine, if I'm understanding your question or your comment, if they really are just dumb terminals, how much do they really need other than a Wi-Fi connection and the ability to capture the audio and send it on?
Well, and you don't need anything more, except that if you start making the dumb terminals do a whole lot more, then you're paying somebody for that interaction. So I guess what I'm looking for is, are they going to have to go back the other way and start putting more power in the dumb terminals so that not every request is a paid request to somebody outside of Amazon?
So we'll have an A-Lady Ultra.
Yeah. So in other words, is Apple's kind of gamble of, you pay more for the hardware, but it can do more and our processing is faster and we can do it on board. Maybe that ends up becoming more economical over the next couple of years.
Oh, wow. That's interesting, Eric, because you're pointing out the fact, it's something I keep forgetting, that Apple too, Apple's going to have to pay for ChatGPT to do some of the processing. Amazon here is going to have to pay for Claude.
You don't have to use ChatGPT, though.
You don't have to use it, right?
Right.
A lot of stuff is on device. So everything that's on device, maybe there's no extra charge. But if you're saying, hey, I don't want to pay for Apple speakers because they're more expensive, I'll get an A-Lady device. But then you have to pay a surcharge to actually have the dumb terminal respond. Then aren't you paying the same amount?
Don't know. But at least Apple will have the ability to do on device. We haven't heard anything about the A-Lady being able to do on device. And if she's doing it off device, then they're probably going to have to be paying Anthropic for Claude.
And if it goes on device, the cost of the device is going to be a lot more.
Yep.
Right.
Because going back, I looked when my first Amazon Echo I purchased, it was in September of 2015. We're almost 9 years since that thing came out, and that was still $100 for that back in those days. Now they're selling dots for $30, $40 in basic devices, but they have to be. They're losing money on that. So where's this AI going to bring them? That they have to charge for it because they're going to have to pay for these services because it's not theirs.
But Dave, are they losing money on those devices if they're just, as Eric said, or Marty said, whoever said it, that they're just dumb terminals? All they're doing is they're phoning home to Amazon Central to process your request.
Yeah, but now it's not Amazon. Now they're forwarding that from Amazon to somebody else's model. It's not all internal Amazon. So there's an extra surcharge at the other end.
Right. So now we're back. What'd you say, Marty? We have Classic. What was the second one?
Classic and Remarkable.
Remarkable, and then Ultra. Ultra comes with a cape. But you're right. I mean, a lot's going to depend on how you do it. I guess Apple having the M4 chip in pretty much everything, or something equivalent for the mobile side, puts them at a definite advantage because they'll be able to do a lot more on board. So, wow, interesting. So in the in the whiner of the week again. We have Spotify, because now Spotify blames Apple for loss of iPhone volume control of connected devices.
And what else can they complain about?
Exactly.
Spotify's been hurt. We better call a whambulance.
Wham.
I feel like I can't take Spotify seriously anymore. Am I just that biased? well, okay. I mean, am I just that biased but it just seems like all they do is complain and they bring out features and then they drop features. Then they change pricing, then they change it back. Then they change it a third time. Then they promise things and don't deliver.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about this with YouTube Music as well and Apple Music. Both services do extraordinarily well. I mean, I have both services only because I have YouTube Premium. I have Apple Music because I do the Apple One bundle. So, what's Spotify doing for us when it comes to providing the value? Now you go back to this volume control thing. Okay, so I mean, that's the way it goes. You have to that you don't own the hardware, Spotify, so you have to adapt to what the hardware provides. And if you can get a developer that you have developers that develop these apps, make them work the way they should on an iPhone.
Guy in the chat room says, I think Spotify is in a death spiral or ripe for acquisition.
Yeah.
Okay, so who would acquire it? Amazon already has Amazon Music. Google already has YouTube Music.
YouTube.
And YouTube Music along with it. So who would be a candidate?
I don't know. Unless it goes for a good price. Maybe someone might bite.
Come on, Elon.
Meta.
Meta could be one of them.
Oh, Meta. I didn't think about Meta.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
That's really interesting because if that would give Meta a whole lot more information on what people are listening to.
Yep.
It would also put them into the podcast, potentially into the podcast space.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Huh. Okay, good for you. Oh, okay, so Guy says name service here powered by Spotify. And Brett says being in a death spiral makes it seem unlikely anybody would buy them.
Yeah, Brett. Else.
Okay.
Sirius XM could possibly do it. They've purchased other podcast networks and other. They have Pandora.
Yeah,
be a nice fit. And their stock has actually been growing, and they're signing contracts left and right for podcasters, even though they still pay a lot for Howard Stern. I mean, Howard still has listeners. They still, Even though he took a 2-month hiatus on his vacation, people are still listening. It's just crazy.
But he's done that every summer for the last 3 summers.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And it doesn't affect it. Why not? Why not enhance their? Because I happened to be listening to him this morning, and he started. How he says he's never want to be on a podcast. That's not because he's the guy that came for terrestrial radio. I would never do that. He's starting to realize that these podcasts are becoming very popular. I just mentioned before we started the show with the Kelsey brothers from and Kansas City, and Jason and Travis now have $100 million contract with having their own podcast, which has become immensely popular. Obviously, it helps being sports figures and popular sports figures at that. But that's just one example of many when it comes to podcasting, music, and having all this stuff. And Spotify tried to get into the podcast world. Yeah, I'm listed on Spotify and don't get a ton of traffic from it, but a lot of people do. But you have that part of it too. So why not?
Mark Fuccio couldn't be here with us tonight, but he is in our chat room, and he says Spotify's market cap is 5 times higher than Sirius.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That probably wouldn't happen because of that reason.
Yeah.
It does say in this article, it does say Apple actually offers an API for third-party music services to stream directly to its HomePods, but for whatever reason, Spotify has chosen not to implement it.
Yeah, because their bitterness towards Apple.
Sure, they can whine. Mark also offers here that Spotify is now profitable. No death spiral. Sadly, they can survive and whine forever.
Yeah.
So you will be hearing more about this as we go along. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.